listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
In this show, we're going to cover all topics technical, from Windows to Mac to smartphones to you name it. Today's show is going to focus specifically on Windows 10, backing up your email, the cloud, and of course Pokemon Go. This show is pre-recorded, but that does not mean that we don't want to hear from you. All questions can be sent via email or chat by writing to me at CoreyK@PCTechFL.com, that's FL is in Florida, or by asking questions via Skype with username HiTechWithCK, that's HiTechWithCK. Your questions will be answered directly by email or Skype at the time that you send them, and then the questions and answers will be re-aired during the following weekend so everybody can hear and we can share the knowledge. So let's jump right into Windows 10. That is something on everybody's mind today. This was the last week that you could do that free upgrade for Windows 10. So if you haven't upgraded yet, there are a few changes that we want you to be made aware of. If you didn't upgrade by now, you will now have to pay $120 or so to get that that upgrade to Windows 10, unless you want to pay a monthly subscription fee for Windows 10. Software by subscription is something that we're going to see more and more of in the coming months and years. Rather than having a physical disk or thumb drive and owning your software outright, you can spread the cost out by renting that software. So it cuts down on the ownership factor. It reduces that big one-time charge, but the downside is you never really own your software anymore. You're just renting it. And as we've seen with Office 365, sometimes the rental versions of the software actually have less features than the full-fledged, paid outright, your copy-to-own version of the software. So there are some pros and cons, but software as a subscription or software as a service is something that is here to stay, and we're just going to see more and more of that. Now, if you purchase your PC from an OEM like HP, Dell, or Lenovo, you may have had the option to buy a Windows 10 PC that was downgraded at the factory to Windows 7 just before shipping out to you. Those customers may have some surprises in store, as the disk that comes with these systems is only a recovery disk. If you never had a full Windows 10 install on the machine in the first place, the recovery disk is not going to get you where you need to be, because the disk has nothing to recover to. So if you're on Windows 7 or 8.1 now, you will need to go through the Windows 10 upgrade process through Windows Update or Microsoft Store for the Windows 8 and 8.1 users. Go through that update process first. Then if something goes wrong with your Windows 10 installation in the future, then you can use the recovery disk. It's just not going to work before. So that's something that everyone should be aware of. For small business users especially, you will want to understand the difference between the old way that Windows did thing with the old legacy BIOS and this newer, what's called UEFI BIOS that Windows 8 and 10 use. So we're going to get into that a little bit later on in the show. We're also going to be covering email backups. I have known people over the years that had hundreds and thousands of emails, some of them business related, and they never thought to back up their email, and poof, one day their hard drive failed, or they overfilled their hard drive, something happened, catastrophic, lightning struck, and all of a sudden all those thousands of emails were gone because they didn't have a backup plan in place. So we're going to go ahead and cover that a little bit later on the show. And I just wanted to give you my contact information one more time. That's Corey K at PCTechFL.com, or you can send me a message through Skype at HiTech with CK. That's HITECH with CK. C as in Charlie, K as in Kilo. And I'll be glad to answer any questions at all that you have. I have over 10 years experience in the industry. I cover Windows, I cover Mac, I cover Linux, I cover smartphones. Any tech you can really imagine, you can ask me about it, and if I don't have the answer, we can find somebody that does. Stay tuned for a few messages from our sponsor here. When we come back, we're going to be talking about this legacy BIOS and this UEFI BIOS and what the heck they are anyways. And no show would be complete this week without covering Pokemon Go, the exciting new game from Nintendo that's really putting them back on the map in more ways than one. So stay tuned, X-Zone Nation. This is High Tech with Corey K. Be back in a moment.
Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold. You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Wilda Wiecka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we will weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Wilda Wiecka, and the Science of Magic right here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Starr began to demonstrate a metaphysical connection to the spirit world as a little girl. Her family noticed the connection, but it was a great-grandmother who told the family that Linnea was indeed gifted. The great-grandmother, who was also gifted, felt that Linnea had indeed inherited these attributes. It has been noticed that oftentimes such things are passed down through the generations. Linnea was also born with a caul, a thin white membrane across a newborn's face. Legend has it that if the baby is born with this caul, the child will have second sight, or what we call psychic abilities. Linnea Starr does past, present, and future, and has the gift of prophecy.
It is written within scriptures that if you are able to give factual information and prophecies indeed come true, the gift indeed comes from the divine realm. Linnea Starr does large interactive groups as well as private gatherings. For more information on Linnea Starr or to contact Linnea for a one-on-one consultation, visit her website at www.linneastar.com. That's www.linneastar.com.
Welcome back to High Tech with Corey K. I am your host, Corey K. You can reach me at Corey K at PCTechFL.com or reach me by Skype at High Tech with CK as the username. You can send me any technical questions at all. This is not a live show, so I will answer your questions at the time I receive them for your benefit, and I will re-air those questions and the answers the following weekend for everybody else's benefit. Just before the break, we were getting into Windows 10 and the end of the free upgrade period, and I promised to tell you about these things called Legacy BIOS and UEFI BIOS. But for starters, we have to go over what is BIOS anyways. That's BIOS. It's BIOS, and it stands for Basic Input-Output System. And it's actually software, or really firmware, on your motherboard that allows your computer to communicate with the different hardware devices that are attached to it. And those devices can include keyboards, mice, video cards, printers, and many others. BIOS stayed pretty much the same for about 30 years, but the old BIOS couldn't handle hard drives that were greater than 2.1 terabytes very well, so a new solution was needed. Enter the UEFI BIOS. That's UEFI, and that stands for Unified Extensible Firmware Interface. UEFI BIOS is the BIOS used for Windows 8 and above, including Windows 10, and it includes enhanced security measures like enforcement of digitally signed drivers from trusted companies and support for larger hard drives. Those are hard drives that are larger than 2.1 terabytes. Why am I telling you all this? Because when you switch from a system running Windows 7 to Windows 10, more often than not, the computer's going to make a switch from this older legacy BIOS to the new UEFI BIOS, and this can sometimes be a problem during the upgrade process. It can especially be a problem if you decide to roll back to the older Windows 7 operating system. If you decide to roll back to Windows 7 and are not successful, one of the many items on your troubleshooting checklist should be to switch the BIOS back to legacy mode. Other points of failure to look for include checking for the presence of the Windows.old folder. That's the folder that Windows uses to store your old Windows 7 settings and files after the Windows 10 upgrade that would allow you to roll back within 30 days of the Windows 10 upgrade. If you have a lot of files that you're migrating over and you're using more than 50% of your hard drive's available space, you may find that the Windows.old folder actually fills up your hard drive completely, and then you really have a mess on your hands. The temptation at that point, if you have an overfull hard drive, is to delete that Windows.old folder. And if you decide to go that route, your system will be just fine. I've done it myself. But you only want to delete the Windows.old folder if you don't want to roll back to the previous operating system. That would be Windows 7 in this case. If you don't want to roll back, you can delete it. If you think you don't like Windows 10 and you want to roll back, you want to make sure that Windows.old folder is there, or else Windows 10 is not going to have an easy way to get back to Windows 7, at least not with your files intact. Another problem you might encounter during the Windows 10 upgrade process is a warning that one or more of your devices is not compatible with Windows 10. Each time you upgrade Windows now, and it's been this way for a few years, Microsoft runs some sort of compatibility check to make sure your programs and devices are ready for the new operating system. In many cases, it's not the device itself, but your current driver that is the culprit, and the reason that the Windows 10 upgrade assistant is saying, hey, this device is not compatible. The good news is it probably is compatible. You just have a version of the driver that's not compatible, but we can change all that. If any device is listed as not compatible with Windows 10, you have a couple of options. One, if possible, remove the device and then reinstall the device after the upgrade has completed. If the problem device is your add-in video card, either take it out of the computer physically and uninstall the driver, and this will work because most computers have a built-in graphics component on the motherboard that you can fall back on for just basic video in the meantime. Be warned if the video card is the component that's not compatible. If you decide to remove it or roll back that driver, the screen resolution is going to change to a basic resolution. Everything's going to get really big. It's not what you're used to, but this is normal if you uninstall the driver for advanced video cards. And once you complete that Windows 10 upgrade process, you can just update the driver again with the Windows 10 compatible version, and your screen should be back to normal again. Now, a second option you could go with if a device isn't compatible is you can disable driver signature enforcement, which sounds scary, but is really not. It's not a recommended course of action. They put driver signature enforcement in place so that you wouldn't download drivers from an untrusted source. People who write malware, they like to do fake drivers or files that pose as if they're device drivers, and it can really mess up your system if you get that. So driver signature enforcement is there for a reason, but if the methods that we mentioned before don't work for you, disabling that driver signature enforcement is a good way to go. If you're on a Windows 7 system, to disable driver signature enforcement, you want to restart your computer and just start tapping and releasing that F8 key. Just tap, tap, tap the F8, that's function 8, and go to the line in the advanced boot options menu that suddenly appears that says disable driver signature enforcement. If you are working on a larger machine with a lot of RAM, it can fly through that screen that accepts the F8 key very fast. So if you have been tapping on F8 a few times and it just keeps booting into Windows normally, you may have to drop down to the minimum amount of RAM needed just to power on the computer and try to access it that way. Now, the process is a little bit different if you are on Windows 8 or 8.1 and then you're going to upgrade to 10. If you're on Windows 8, run every Microsoft Store update and every Windows update. Go to 8.1 first. Then you want to go to the settings icon, which is the gear icon, and you can access that on Windows 8 or 8.1 by typing the Windows key and the letter C. That's not the only way to get there. It will appear if you move the mouse to that lower right hand corner of the screen. You'll see a settings icon. Then you want to go to change PC settings, general, troubleshoot, advanced options, startup settings, then click the restart button. This is going to restart your PC, but upon restarting, instead of booting into Windows like normal, the computer is going to present a menu that allows you to disable driver signature enforcement. Once you've done that, you can boot into Windows like normal, and you can try the upgrade process again, and hopefully this time, at least if it's related to a device with an older, outdated driver, then hopefully that will allow you to complete that upgrade process. Now, after completing the Windows 10 upgrade process, you can reinstall this seemingly non-compatible device and its driver. You can go back into the Advanced Options menu or Advanced Boot Options menu, and you can re-enable driver signature enforcement because it's likely that this new driver that you just downloaded after the upgrade process is actually compatible with Windows 10 now. So that's pretty cool. If the upgrade assistant reports that it's a specific program instead of a device that's not compatible with the upgrade, you have a lot of options here. The first thing you should do that's easiest, try updating that program first if that's something that's allowed, and see if it removes the error. An older version of an application, I'll just say Adobe Reader, it may not be compatible with Windows 10, but if you get the new update for that software, there's a really good chance that the newer version of the software is compatible with Windows 10. So that's your first course of action. Now, if that fails, write down the name of the program that says it's not compatible and the product key for that program, if it has one. You really want to hang on to those product keys. Remove the program if you already know that there's a way to reinstall it later. If it's really old software, perhaps on a disk, and it's company specific, you may want to consult your local IT team if you have one, or you can send me an email at coreyk@pctechfl.com and we can see what we can find out about that software before you remove it. If you're confident that there's a newer version available of the software, go ahead and remove that program. Try to upgrade to Windows 10 again. Hopefully, since the software is gone, it won't throw that error. Your upgrade process should be successful. And after you've upgraded to Windows 10, go ahead and reinstall a newer version of that same program, and that'll work 90% of the time. Please be aware, I mentioned the older software before. Sometimes there's very old 16-bit applications that might have worked even in Windows 7. Windows XP and higher, at least, they have a compatibility mode or some version of it where you can run a program as if you were using an older version of Windows. And in XP, Vista, and 7, you could run compatibility mode for software that was designed for Windows 95 or 98 or earlier, and it worked pretty well. But now with Windows 10, that support for those very old 16-bit applications is not there. You do have some alternatives. There is virtualization software like VirtualBox or VMware that actually allows you to run those older 16-bit applications. So if you really need it for work, you can't do without that software. You can't work with a newer version or the software is discontinued. Consider some sort of virtualization solution. You can email me about that. That email is coreyk@pctechfl.com, or you can hit me up on Skype with my Skype name, which is High Tech with CK, and that's HI Tech with CK, and I can see if I can help you with that. Well, that's enough of Windows 10 for now, although you can be certain we'll be giving you more details in the future. We're going to go to a quick news and commercial break, X-Zone Nation. Once again, this show is High Tech with Corey K, and my email address is coreyk@pctechfl.com, and on Skype it's High Tech with CK. In the next segment, we're going to go on to email. Everybody uses it. Most people love it. It's kind of a staple of our existence now, and it's a good idea sometimes to back up that email. Sometimes you need to back it up for legal reasons, or it's business email that you need to back up. So we're going to talk about that. Some email clients are easier, and services are easier to back up than others, but we're going to go over all the nuances there. And no show this month would be complete without talking a little bit about Pokemon Go, which we're going to save for our last segment called Tech Power Time. Stay tuned, X-Zone Nation. I'm live here on Skype at High Tech with CKHITECH with CK. That's a mouthful. Or email me, which is even better, CoreyK@PCTechFL.com. Pretty good at keeping up with those emails, so it's a good way to go. See you when we come back from break.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Thomas Jefferson was a Burgess of 27 when he met Martha Wales Skelton, a 22-year-old widowed heiress who was fondly called Patty by her family. They were married on January the 1st, 1772, and they took up residence in a cabin on the building site on top of a Virginia mountain that Thomas had named Monticello. As Thomas and Patty slowly built their first version of the great house at Monticello, the Revolutionary War was heating up. Patty, with difficulty, bore 5 children, but only 2 girls survived. Thomas's political career developed to the point where he was often away from home, but after he authored and signed the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia, he resolved never again to leave his wife. He was elected the governor of Virginia, just as that state became the Revolution's last battleground. The Revolutionary War ended in 1781, and Thomas gladly retired altogether to my family, my farm, and my books. But Patty continued to want to bear her treasured husband a son, and late in the summer of 1782, she died of kidney failure at the age of 33, 4 months after having borne yet another girl. Thomas was so devastated by her death that he never remarried. He mourned her for the rest of his life, even as he helped to frame the peace in France and then became the first Secretary of State, the second Vice President, and the third President of the United States. This story is true. Thomas Jefferson was such an obsessive letter writer and record keeper that we know where he was and what he was doing nearly every day of his adult life. Every significant thing he says in My Thomas comes from his contemporary writings. My Thomas by Roberta Grimes is now available at Barnes & Noble, Costco, Target, Books A Million, Hudson Booksellers, Kmart, Walmart, Sam's Club, Walgreens, CVS, and online at Amazon.com. You can visit Roberta Grimes online at www.robertagrimes.com.
The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving into the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State-certified occupational school, training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com.
Unwilling to be the government's deadly assassin, gifted psychic Kahara Mitchell went AWOL and ended up buried under rubble in the wake of a great tsunami. She regained consciousness far from Earth on the medical ship of a Daguerrean intergalactic fleet. Has she been rescued or abducted by aliens? The Chalice of Carrie, Kahira O'Donnell's latest paranormal science fiction romance, is the passionate story of an Earthwoman and her destined mates, twin kings from another galaxy. Kahara uses her gifts fighting alongside Lords Rom and Ra in a war that will determine the destiny of galaxies. The Chalice of Carrie by Kahira O'Donnell is now available at KahiraO'Donnell.com or at Amazon.com. You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. What Happened in Benghazi is revealed by Nicholas Genix, author of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. He informs the American people that President Obama deceived them by advocating a strong foreign policy prior to the 2012 presidential election, and Hillary Clinton supported this deception. As the title infers, there is a connection between Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. Ample evidence informs Americans that Obama's early indoctrination in the Quran developed an affinity for Islam, why the Quran is the source of discontent in many countries, and why the Obama foreign policy deception led to poor military action and caused the loss of American lives in Benghazi. Genix provides 36 questions for the Select Committee on Benghazi to validate if Americans are justified to mistrust President Obama and Hillary Clinton. An overview of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi is presented on the website www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Annie Callahan, dedicated to negotiating a position for Earth within the Daguerrean Coalition, had trained for 3 years to become an Earth ambassador. Yet, the very eve of her arrival at the capital ruling planet, she is claimed as destined mate to an oversized, mating-maddened vamp who swears he will never release her. Lord Aztaran, king of the Macian sector, has waited over 900 years for his destined mate. Having found her as an alpha vamp, he is unable to relinquish Annie, virtually holding her hostage until he can claim her. Yet Macians cannot survive without their mate's love. How could he strip her of her citizenship, her ambassadorship, and her freedom and expect to win her heart? With All That I Am by Kahira O'Donnell is the latest book in this exciting series, The Daguerrean Chronicles, guaranteed to keep readers coming back for more. With All That I Am by Kahira O'Donnell is available on Amazon.com and KahiraO'Donnell.com.
Welcome back, X-Zone Nation. This is High Tech with Corey K. We have just been discussing Windows 10, and we are moving on to email, specifically backing up your email We all use it now. Many of us access it through Outlook or a similar email client. It can sometimes be difficult to set up, although that process is being made easier all the time by the developers of email clients. I remember in the Windows 98 days, if I used something like Outlook Express, I would always have to know specifically what all of my mail settings were just to be able to set it up. And nowadays I can usually fire up that Outlook, give it my email address, and it just automatically knows how to configure Outlook to work with my email. But as we're going to see in this segment, sometimes manual configuration is necessary, especially if you're trying to back up something like Yahoo Mail. We're going to go into that in detail. People often think of backing up their documents and other important files on their computer, but most people do not often think of backing up their email. If you plan on keeping any of your old email, it's a good idea to back it up periodically. If you're a business owner especially, and you can't even lose daily emails, you may consider backing up your email daily if needed. One of the best ways to back up your email is through a zip file, which you can then transfer to an external drive or the cloud. Most email services like Gmail automatically back up your email to the cloud anyways, but sometimes for legal reasons, or if you're in a high security environment where you're really restricted in what you can do online versus offline, you can back up your email to a zip file and you have it there for offline access. This process for performing the backup is going to vary by email client, so feel free to email me at CoreyK@PCTechFL.com or send a Skype message at HiTechWithCoreyK for more details. If your primary email is Yahoo, you will need to use an email client like Outlook or Thunderbird to perform this backup, because there's no native utility inside of Yahoo that's going to back up for you. And that's unfortunate, because as hard as this is to believe, even Yahoo's email servers can get backed up at times. So it's good to perform those backups, especially if you're being migrated either to Yahoo or away from Yahoo by a smaller ISP, something like that. If you're using Outlook or Thunderbird, one problem that you'll encounter is having a local copy of your emails and a network connected copy on the server can quickly become confusing, because how are you going to keep track of which emails are backed up on the servers automatically, which copies are stored locally on your own personal computer? It's good to get organized so you can keep that straight. Oftentimes people have a saved copy of their emails on their local machine and they think that they have a bulletproof backup, but what happens if your hard drive fails? All of a sudden all of that email data is gone. So it's best to store this so-called backup to an external drive or to the cloud for added safety. Speaking of the cloud, you might ask, what is the cloud? Cloud storage allows you to back up your local files to a remote computer somewhere else. Some of the more popular cloud storage options are OneDrive, Google Drive, iCloud if you're using Mac or an iPhone, and Dropbox is an increasingly popular option. It saves you from having to go out and buy a physical drive to store your important data, and you can access it across multiple devices. So those are just some of the advantages. I've seen some horror stories over the years where a customer's smaller ISP or internet service provider migrated their email to a new platform, and key emails were lost during that transition. I've seen countless Outlook files become corrupt, and the user never had another backup as protection. So in those cases, months or even years of emails were just lost. Now, if you use Yahoo Mail and you normally access it through Outlook, Yahoo is set by default to use something called POP, or Post Office Protocol. POP will not allow you to back up your email outside the Yahoo web server. Even though Yahoo servers are fairly reliable, it never hurts to have an outside backup for that rare situation that dictates offline use. So you're going to need to change your Yahoo settings in Outlook or Thunderbird to IMAP. IMAP actually stays in sync with the server, unlike POP, but it also lets you save an offline copy if you pick the correct settings. And the good news about Outlook 2016 is it generally picks those correct settings for you, but we're going to go over all that in detail. So go ahead, if you're a Yahoo or Ymail user and you want to back up your email now and you use Outlook, go ahead and open up Outlook, right click the Yahoo email account, go to Account Properties, then select Account Settings for Outlook 2013 and 2016. In the Email tab, select New, because Outlook does not actually allow you to change from POP3 to IMAP without creating a new account listing. Select Manual Setup or Additional Server Types, then select the POP or IMAP radio button. Change the account type first to IMAP, because by default it's set to POP3, and enter imap.mail.yahoo.com for incoming mail and smtp.mail.yahoo.com for outgoing mail. Make sure that the slider that says mail to keep offline is set to all, or you're at risk of not saving some of those folders that you want to save. So make sure it says all. Click the More Settings button, go to the Outgoing Server tab and select My Outgoing Server Requires Authentication. Go to the Advanced tab and change the incoming server to port 993 and the outgoing server to port 587, and make sure first to set the encryption type to SSL for the incoming server and then to auto for the outgoing. The reason you want to do that first, if you change the port numbers first and you forget to change the security settings, then when you go and you change those security setting drop downs, it's actually going to erase the ports that you just set. You have a mess on your hands. It's no good. And another point that I can't emphasize enough, for the incoming server you must set it to SSL. You would think that the setting that says auto would just pick SSL automatically, but for whatever reason it doesn't do that, so make sure you pick SSL. Now you're going to notice a section called deleted items, and you're going to have to decide for yourself whether to delete all of your emails right away across all devices, which means if you delete your email in Outlook, it's going to be deleted from your iPhone, it's going to be deleted from Ymail Online, it's going to delete everything everywhere immediately. Or you can check the box that just marks them as mails that you want to delete, but it doesn't actually delete them. And if you choose that option, you'll have to be very careful not to lose track of which emails are your offline emails, and which ones are just automatically backed up to the server. So one thing I like to do, if I'm going to save emails offline, I'll actually create a folder called offline email, and that way I can keep it all straight in my head. And let's see, before we finish up this the settings here, you want to uncheck require logon using secure password authentication. It is possible to use secure password authentication with Yahoo Mail and Outlook, but if you're going to do that, you first need to log into your Ymail account online, go to the gear setting icon for your Yahoo account, and enable two-factor authentication. Then just click Next, and the Outlook wizard will finish. It's going to test your account settings. If anything goes wrong, you can email me. My email's CoreyK@PCTechFL.com, and we'll see if we can get through this. Now, at this point, you still have one problem left. you have the old Yahoo email account that was set to POP3. You have that entry, and you have this new IMAP Yahoo account on the left. To avoid confusion, it's best to remove the old Yahoo account so you do not later become confused as to which account is being stored locally and which is not. Because remember, the POP3 account is not being stored locally. The IMAP account is, so you just want to have one Yahoo account. It also takes up more time to download your emails if you have two accounts. So get rid of that old POP3 account. You can always bring it back later if you change your mind. But let's just have one Yahoo account in our Outlook. Now, other email providers like webmail and Gmail have easier backup methods that do not require an email client like Outlook or Thunderbird. With Gmail, you have to go into your Gmail account settings and make sure that IMAP is enabled first. And the neat thing with Gmail is you can have POP3 and IMAP enabled simultaneously. Now, with Outlook 2013 and 2016, you can just type in your name and your Gmail address, and as long as that account setting was changed to enable IMAP, it's just going to set up IMAP for you by default. So the configuration is a lot easier than with Yahoo. Now, as far as performing the backup with Gmail, you want to use it's called their takeout service. You want to go to takeout.google.com, make sure everything is deselected first, so hit that unselect all button, and then move the slider next to mail over to the left. That's going to tell Google that you want to back up your mail. Then click next. For file type, you want to make sure zip is selected, and then you can choose to be emailed the zip on the right, or you can send that zip file to Google Drive, OneDrive, or Dropbox. Those are some of the integrated features with Takeout. Keep in mind, if you choose Dropbox or OneDrive, because they're not Google services, you need to give it special permission. You need to give Google special permission to communicate with OneDrive or Dropbox. And keep in mind that it can take hours or days to send that archive to OneDrive, depending on how much mail you have. But in contrast to Ymail, which we saw was very lengthy and involved, once you've done this, voila, you're done. Your Gmail's backed up. That was pretty easy. And it gets even easier if you're using webmail. Now, webmail is very popular. Most people who use it don't even know that it's webmail because either their ISP or their web server set that email up for them, and you don't really know that you're using webmail. But if you find that the address you have to type in is something like webmail.yourwebhost.com or something like that, you're using webmail. And with webmail, you actually have an integrated feature where you can back up your email automatically, and it backs it up in EML format, which Outlook can read. So if you have webmail and you use Outlook, you can back up your email and you can read it later with Outlook. If for some reason you are temporarily without internet access, you can't get to your webmail, there they are. You can read it offline with Outlook. Now, as far as the process of backing up with webmail, you sign into your webmail, you highlight the emails that you want to save, click the More icon, which usually looks like three little dots, and select Download. So it's really about one sign in and a few clicks away. So it's even easier than Gmail, which is pretty easy to back up. Now, we just covered some of the more common email services and clients today. If you have questions about backing up other email services that we didn't mention today, or you're having a problem, just email me at CoreyK@PCTechFL.com, or my Skype name, which is High Tech with CK, that's HITECH TECH with CK, and I can answer your questions right then and there, and we're going to air those questions and answers the following weekend just so everybody else can get in on the fun too. So that pretty much covers email. I wanted to go back to one point on Windows 10 that we kind of glossed over before. A lot of the OEMs, HP, Dell, Lenovo, they're sending Windows 10 recovery disks for people who did Windows 10 with a downgrade to Windows 7. The problem with these recovery disks is you never had Windows 10 on there in the first place, so it doesn't have anything to recover to. So these solutions are going to fail 100% of the time. You can't use that recovery disk to recover an operating system that you never had in the first place. So basically go through that Windows 7 update process. There's really no other way. I know we've ran past the free period right now, but depending on how you purchase that computer from your OEM, you can call Dell, call Lenovo, call HP, and they can give you instructions if you run into any activation problems performing that upgrade. I know it seems easy to just pop in that disk and try to do the upgrade that way, but sadly that is just not going to work. So run through the Windows 10 update process. If you're on Windows 8 or 8.1, if you're on Windows 8, first of all, run the Windows update and update to Windows 8.1, and then go ahead and update again. You should get the icon to upgrade to Windows 10. I know that icon has morphed and transformed itself in the last few weeks, but there are actually ways to remove it. Let's say you wanted to stay on Windows 10 and you wanted to remove the Windows 10 upgrade notice. There is a way to do that. If you email me at CoreyK@PCTechFL.com, I can show you ways to find that GW utility, which is the Get Windows X or Windows 10, Roman numeral X10 upgrade. We can remove that notification for you too. CoreyK@PCTechFL.com. This is High Tech with Corey K. In the final segment of the show, we're going to be talking about none other than Pokemon Go. So stay tuned, and we'll see you on the other side of this break.
Children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. If you enjoy reading a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love From Out of the Woodwork by William S. Peckham. Sean Kennedy, a Toronto contractor, buys derelict houses, guts them, and turns them into multi-family dwellings. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, a century house in ruins, and starts the renovation, the house fights back. He is visited by ghosts of owners past. His visions are triggered by touching an oak mantle, reading a faded letter, opening an old locket, or opening a brand new casket in the basement. These visions will take you on a trip across southern Ontario from Niagara Falls to Toronto to Kingston. From Out of the Woodwork is now available in paperback and on your favorite electronic reader. To order your copy of From Out of the Woodwork, go to www.williamspeckham.com. That's www.williamspeckham.com.
Welcome back to High Tech with Corey K. I promised you this whole show that we were going to talk about Pokemon Go before it's over, so we're going to do that now. Pokemon Go is Nintendo's first real effort to get into the mobile space, and it's been a runaway success for them. Nintendo is now valued tens of billions of dollars higher than it was just a few weeks ago. And this is the same Nintendo that vowed not to get into the mobile market a few years ago. Now they've read the writing on the wall, and they're going to adapt to changing times, and what a stellar start it has been for them. By now, you have probably all heard the stories of people falling off of cliffs playing Pokemon Go, running into police cars playing Pokemon Go, and generally just being a menace to themselves and others while playing Pokemon Go. The irony is that neighborhood children are playing outside again for the first time in perhaps years. The game involves geo-tracking, so you have to go places to find your Pokecoins and other special items. I heard reports this week from our very own break room that somebody found a Charmander in the break room. But I've seen more kids playing outside than I have in years, and I think Pokemon Go is the driver. It's kind of outdoor, indoor entertainment. But seriously, Exo Nation, be careful when playing Pokemon Go, and for God's sake, don't drive when you're playing Pokemon Go. Think about the others. And I'm really sorry for Windows Phone users like myself, because Pokemon Go is not available for Windows Phone, so now might be a great time to upgrade to a new iPhone or Android phone. But if you're thinking of going for the latest and greatest new iPhone, be aware that the new iPhone 7 is not going to have a headphone jack. We're seeing in the laptop market, you're actually seeing laptops being shipped out now without optical drives, so no CD, DVD drives, and we're having to adjust to that. And I think the running theory is that you can download software directly now over the network, so you don't have to have a disk. But if something goes wrong with Windows, those disks really come in handy sometimes. So we'll see if there's any consumer backlash against that. And then for Apple, especially with this iPhone 7, we're going to see if people have a reaction to this lack of a headphone jack. Anytime I see people walking around with their smartphones, I see that headphone jack more often than not. It's something that people really use a lot, so not quite sure what they were thinking there. Now, you do have some options. You can go with something like a Bluetooth headset as a substitute. That might be what they're thinking. There's also TDS audio or TRS audio jacks that you could use, maybe even a lightning port or a USB-C port to headphones. That might be a possibility or a workaround. But if people don't take to it. If they're really upset with Apple for not adding that headphone jack, I could actually see some sort of backlash happening here. So that'll be interesting to see. This has been High Tech with Corey K. We're going to wrap it up for this weekend, but stay tuned next weekend. We're going to talk a little bit about virtualization in our High Tech segment, and we're going to cover maybe more Windows 10 woes. Cyber attacks have been in the news a lot for the last couple of years, and we're going to look at that. We're going to look at consolidation in the communications industry. Feel free to share your stories and questions with me. Send an email to coreyk@pctechfl.com or hit me up on Skype, and that's going to be High Tech, H-I Tech, with Corey K. And we will see you next week. And thank you, Exo Nation.